Mr. Vice Mayor, it's 6:30. Are we ready to begin?
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Petaluma City Council and the Petaluma Community Development Successor Agency on Monday, December 2nd, 2024. If you wish to provide a public comment on tonight's agenda, please fill out a speaker card in the back of the chamber and bring it to the city clerk. I will now invite Monica Aparicio and Maria Galvez to provide information to those who want to participate in Spanish.
Are our interpreters available?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, we didn't have sound before. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a moment. Hola, buenas noches. Me llamo Mónica. Estoy aquí con mi pareja de interpretación, María. Estamos hoy aquí como intérpretes. Hoy este evento se llevará a cabo en español e inglés. Se usarán ambos idiomas activamente, así que usted podrá elegir un canal para participar en su idioma preferido después de que le hayamos explicado cómo funcionará la interpretación. Estaremos usando la función de interpretación de Zoom. Después que termine esta explicación, se activará la función de interpretación. Si usted está conectado con su computadora, verá un icono de un mundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Si usted está conectado con su tableta o teléfono, pulse en más y verá un menú que incluye la opción de interpretación de idiomas. Para escuchar la interpretación, pulse el icono del mundo o interpretación de idiomas y a continuación elija su canal de idioma. Thank you. We're ready.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call now?
Barnacle?
Present.
Cater Thompson?
Here.
Healy?
Here.
Now?
Here.
Posake?
Here.
Shribs?
Here.
McDonald is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we start the Pledge of Allegiance, there is something that I learned long ago when I did recent research on it. And one of the little pet peeves folks have about Pledge of Allegiance is that we tend to do it a little bit wrong, and to correct that, there is a pause that we usually put in that doesn't belong there. So when you say one nation under God, that's normal, you're actually not supposed to pause. You're supposed to go straight through. One nation under God. So let's try that tonight if we can, please. And please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That worked very well. Please now, if we could have a moment of silence and memories of those in past. Thank you. Is there any agenda changes or deletions for tonight's agenda? Okay, so if we're clear with that, then we can go straight to public comment. So do we have has everyone turned in your blue sheets already from the back? If not, I'll from the city clerk, do we have those ready?
Yes, at this time I will start a 30-second clock for general public comment.
Okay, during general public comment, the public is invited to make comments on items of public interest that are within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction and that are not listed on the current agenda. Public comments are limited up to 3 minutes per person, depending on the number of persons wishing to address the council. Time will be allocated in equal shares, totaling no more than 20 minutes. Have you received any general public comments prior?
We received 6 general public comments before the meeting, which are posted online, and I have 12 cards. If there's any other cards to come in, this is the moment.
So with 12 cards, we're allocating 90 seconds each for each general public comment. That's a minute and a half for the 12 folks. So we have 12, and the first two up is Anna Gibbons, and followed by Lane Siciliano. Please come on up and be ready to go.
Good afternoon, City Council. I am Anna Gibbons. I'm the team lead for the AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps team that is here working in Petaluma, and I'm going to introduce the team to you now. We have Lane from West Virginia, Riley from New York, Mercedes from Pennsylvania, Jade from Connecticut, Dominico from California, Andrew from Maryland, Kai from Michigan, Teddy from Arizona, and Josiah from Ohio. As you can see, we have a diverse group of young adults from all over the United States here working for AmeriCorps, and we can work on projects from mitigating climate change like we're doing here by planting trees in Petaluma, rebuilding homes and responding to disaster, or rebuilding, building new homes. We are one of 17 teams deployed in the Pacific region, working on all kinds of projects. So we're really excited to be here in Petaluma. We have planted a total of 200 trees in the short 4 weeks that we've been here, and we have 2 more full weeks here in Petaluma. So the projects we have worked on are Denman's Reach, La Tercera Elementary School, and initiating the residential tree planting program for Relief. Another project that Relief has allowed us to do is the educational components. All right, thank you for your time.
Lane Siciliano, followed by Maureen Gotzel.
Hi, I'm Lane Siciliano. I'm a high school graduate from Morgantown, West Virginia. I'm a member of the AmeriCorps and CCC Team Blue 2. Like Anna said, we are taking part in the initiation of the residential tree planting program. It's been a very rewarding experience so far. I know I and everyone else on the team has really enjoyed it. The day-to-day looks like arriving at the RTP, Rebuilding Together Petaluma office, gathering the tools, and then get shuttled to our work sites, and then getting shuttled to other work sites until about lunch. And then in the afternoon, a small team will break off and deliver tomorrow's trees while the rest of us plant more. We plant about 12 to 16 trees a day, depending on the soil. Adobe, if any of you are familiar with that. It's been a lot of fun, and like Anna said, we've had a lot of diverse work. We recently did the Denman Reach project. We're still finishing up now, but we actually had the privilege of having another team, Blue 5, come in to help us. They're from Stockton, working at a food bank, so it was very new work for them. They were very engaged. It was a lot of fun. We planted, I think, around 50 trees, and they were seedlings, so it was a little bit of different work. But it was really a lot of fun, and we're excited to plan as many more as we can in the time we have. So I wanted to thank Relief and Rebuilding Together Petaluma for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess Maureen, followed by Catherine Bobrowski.
Good evening, City Council. I'm here representing the residents of D Street to address a pressing concern we face regarding recent charges and associated fees imposed on us. As residents, we collectively oppose the fees that have been introduced following the removal of parking access on the side of our street. This decision has placed undue burden on us, particularly when it comes to essential activities such as home repairs, maintenance, and even welcoming visitors. The encroachment permit fees required for these activities are inevitably passed on to us by contractors, despite claims to the contrary. To illustrate the impact, consider this. Where tree trimming costs $2,500, recent bids have skyrocketed to $9,500 due to additional permit costs and management of street traffic. Similarly, we now face fees ranging from $250 to $300 just to allow a plumber to park in front of our house. These costs are not just exorbitant, they are unfairly targeted at only half of D Street residents, which raises concerns of discriminatory practices, especially given the availability of bike lanes on nearby streets, rendering the new bike lane unnecessary. This issue is a part of a larger pattern of challenges we face due to the city's decision to remove parking and limit our access. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Catherine, followed by Jody Johnson.
Yeah, my name is Catherine Brodsky. I live at the Littlewoods Villa Mobile Park that's owned by Harmony Community. Harmony Community posted this notice to our door, 11/24, 10 o'clock at night. Said they're going to turn off our water at 6 a.m. in the morning. By law, they can't do maintenance before 8 a.m. in the morning, and because that's disturbing peace. And also, too, Harmony is not obeying the laws. They're breaking every single law. There are friends at Space 11 stalking my place, parked against my mobile home, and damaging my fence. That's illegal. That's vandalism, and you need to get Harmony to be shut down immediately. And last week, Harmony's under another lawsuit at another mobile home as of last Tuesday. Do something.
Thank you. Then we have Judy Johnson, followed by Kay Poland.
Good evening, City Council and City staff. We join the City Council meeting again this evening with news of more abuse, more intimidation on the mobile park residents of Youngstown, Littlewoods, and Capri. These attacks on the welfare of every resident must have some sort of culpability. Just since we last met, Youngstown has leaned even further into selling to all ages. We now have 17 new residents who are young adults and toddler children. We have 2 more families moving in after closing on mobile homes at 45 and 50 Pamela Drive just in the last week. Youngstown Senior Mobile Park does not exist even under a lawful senior park overlay. MLS listings, management leasing and selling, and of course rules and regulations, they say all age to any potential buyer, continue daily to mislead and to destroy a senior park that every resident before this signed in to live among seniors only. This morning, a potential buyer stopped to ask questions of a resident and disclosed that just today he called and the management told him Youngstown is an all-age park. Not one of the other 4 senior mobile parks in Petaluma are selling to all ages. After bad actors, managers, and outsiders were served in response to the intimidation letter all residents had received, in retaliation, residents were left to fend for themselves when park owners' land flooded in the last atmospheric river and led to damage of Youngstown residents' homes. Residents were met with management stating they were off duty at 2:45 p.m. in the afternoon.
Thank you. Then we have Kay Poland, followed by Angie Cruz.
2:45 p.m. in the afternoon, while they double parked and watched seniors digging trenches themselves out to the road and seniors having to purchase sump pumps at their own expense. Then we find out this last week that management had HCD come out to look at one resident without major flooding, having supplied him preferential treatment. When the HCD inspector heard there were much worse off residents he had not been told about, he was surprised. Park owners and park management purposely denied residents help on land that park owners own. In Littlewoods, the parking issue continues. There is no accountability for the seizure of residents' owned car parking they have had for years and years. Residents have now had to collect more money to fight legally for their rights. In addition, it's learned that Harmony is not renewing the care program for residents with PG&E, and that residents cannot do it individually as it is all billed through management and onto the statements of each Littlewoods resident. Blatant disregard without any accountability for MRL laws, ordinances, or fair housing standards. While Littlewoods await a second arbitration decision, they are faced with having to fundraise to be able to have representation for appeal from the first arbitration decision that Harmony has waged against the city. Capri still must write a check for months now, knowing they are paying too much, that they are paying increases not allowed. Each resident tries to be patient, believing that the correction will come, but the corrections are not coming, and they bear the burden of paying too much for too many months.
Angie Cruz, followed by Janice Barker.
a quick add-on to Littlewoods. We're getting messages now that there was just posted what seems to be continued work for a water leak, but seems to hide the leak seems to be in the same exact area where they've been wanting to build this fence to block off all the parking, and they're continuing to do that work. So people are not happy and concerned about where their parking will go. But to continue, in more cities and counties than we can count now, these same bad actor large investment groups are painting the same false narratives. They state that Petaluma is taking away their rights, that the city is unreasonable. What did Petaluma take away? Not vacancy control, since it's been part of the rent stabilization ordinance in the city since 1994, not long-term leases, since they've become unlawful since February 13th of 2020 for any new long-term lease, and obsolete come January 1st, 2025 for any long-term lease signed before February 13th, 2020. Why did the state define protection against long-term leases? Long-term leases deny residents' rights and have always been a predatory tool by park owners to gouge more ground rent from unknowing residents. Not park status change, because it always required a 6-month notice.
Okay, Janice Barker, followed by Tim Porteous.
Good evening. The only revision that altered the annual increase allowed amount was less than 1%, with 2% allowed still to be taken. 70% of CPI meant that the park owners could not achieve an additional 1%, which equates to $5 to $10 per address. $5 to $10 per address is why they have brought forth all these attacks, coercions, and threats to all residents. We ask who is really doing the taking away. It is the park owners and not the residents who own their mobile homes, or the city of Petaluma voting in protections after insight and staff reporting. Park owners taking of a senior park status, the attempted taking of $932.41 more at Youngstown per month per address. The attempted taking of $1,530 at Littlewoods per month per home. The attempted taking of Littlewoods a second time over $680 per mobile home per month. The attempted taking at Capri of $340 per mobile home per month. The attempted close of Youngstown, the attempted close of Littlewoods, the taking of residents' rights not offered them.
Tim Porteous, followed by Bert Bota.
The taking of residents' rights not offering them rent stabilization. The taking of parking, the taking of care with PG&E, the attempted taking of a city to enact due diligent zoning, the attempted taking of the city to enact rent-stabilized revisions and protections. Park owners trying to destroy senior citizens and hard-working, humble families who own their mobile home, harming their health, their welfare, their calm, their peace. We're all retired mostly. We've tried. Residents shouldn't be worrying about when they will see their grandchildren next, or their friends, or worrying about the everyday struggle of parenting while working hard to support their families. Just since last city council meeting, residents worry about their houses flooding since management refuses to help their land to be outfitted with French drains, worried about having the stamina to dig their own trenches in the next rainstorm, worried about parking removed merely because they stood up for their rights, worried about favoritism to certain residents because management has the only choice on who she will help, worried about more degradation of a senior park, and very worried that the stay hearing they rightfully fought for has still not been rescheduled after the manipulation or of delay by park owners' attorneys. Our humble, kind, and gentle residents are at the brink, seeing no accountability.
Thank you, Tim. Bert Botan, followed by Rick Parker.
Good. We are right. That's where I stop, buddy.
Good evening, Council. Happy holidays. We're seeing just more egregious attacks on our Youngstown and mobile home parks in general. We do see the angels helping us to survive one more day, one more week, one more month, and we're grateful. And we consider the council part of the angel group. Our actions continue to lead to hope. We're beautiful mobile home park residents who have pride of ownership. We live within our means and deserve to be treated with respect and not used to gouge, to be abused, or to be intimidated. Thank you. These are Petaluma Mobile Home Residents United, sitting here and at home, some with canes, walkers, wheelchairs, some speaking Spanish with diversity of culture, some aging in place, some humbly trying to find simple joy. This is the Petaluma we're proud of. We're proud to be a part of this town, the Petaluma who welcomes, embraces, supports, and takes great pride in its beautiful diversity. Youngstown strong, Littlewood strong, Capri strong, Petaluma Mobile Residents United strong. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Rick Parker, followed by Sandra Shand.
Good evening, Council, and just want to thank you all for your service and congratulations to new elected officials joining us next year. Briefly, once again, I'm a 35-year plus resident of the city of Petaluma, living out on Adobe Creek. Was on the school board here and also led youth groups for many years. Real quick, I just wanted to comment on the infill development process for the city. Just a couple of suggestions. Infill is very different than building new greenfield type situations, and I just encourage the city strongly to bring together all the key stakeholders very early in the process before the EIR process begins, so there can be a lot of give and take. I think it provides for better solutions, creativity, way to surface unique situations that are seen in each neighborhood. I'm talking specifically more about residential neighborhoods here in the infill projects. And you may note we'll be talking, I believe the Creekwood development will be on the next agenda, and we'll have several folks who will want to input to that, because there's information by the folks living in the area that really can make an impact, I think, on making the best decisions for development, which we need in Petaluma. And uniquely, just in the case of Creekwood, you have the schools, Casa Grande High School, senior living, large apartment buildings of Creek, Adobe Creek, a beautiful creek that, by the way, flooded recently, and you'll see that things like Upper Post Bridge are actually in the flooded.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay, Sandra Shand, followed by Dwayne Bellinger.
Hello. Petaluma residents vigil on Saturdays for ceasefire in Gaza and the end of U.S. weapons being used by Israeli Zionists to commit genocide against unarmed civilians, mostly women and children. More than 40,000 children is just a number. Here are a few individuals. Khaled Abul Amer, 2 years old. Sana Al-Farah, along with other members of her family in the bombardment of Israel. She looks like she's about 5. Twin girls whose names I can't pronounce, newborn babies who died along with 85 members of their family, an extended family. Omar Majed posed in his soccer uniform that he just got recently. Brother and sister Lana 6, Muhammad 11. 2 days before she died, Lana sent a video to her sister saying she didn't want to die, be torn to pieces, and that she missed her school. If I didn't bear witness and try to stop these murders. I would dishonor the murdered children of the Holocaust, who I swore I would never forget. The Zionists have become the very thing they reviled.
Thank you for your time. Dwayne Bellinger is our last speaker.
Yes, that's hard to follow. I still want to say that following the election, that your work here, that the things that all of you have done is most appreciated by me, that your years of service, and this year, I think this is your last meeting. So I did want to come in and say thank you all, each and every one of you, for the hours you've put in to get things done right here. And hearing some of these other people speak, I would mention on the mobile home parks, I've read in some of the other states, they've been initiating more and more easiness for establishing mobile home communities with eminent domain, taking the land, and all the people owning the land under their property. And I think that would be, to the extent that we can do that in California, I hope to see us do it in the following year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that closes general public comment, and now we'll go back to council comment. So I'll start ahead on my right with Councilmember Brian Barnacle.
I have nothing, no report.
I don't have any reports, but I would like to know more about the fee encroachments on D Street. So if we could get a memo on that, that would be great. And then as far as Youngstown and the water, I went out there that day and the water was puddling, not going into the street. And so, people had a pickaxe and they're making their own trenches when that should really be the responsibility of the park owner. And then I went down to Capri. I went to actually all the mobile home parks. And I went down to Capri, and the manager there had it all set up so that it would not be flooding in there. She had people that were setting up pumps and different things, and so she was a pretty nice manager. But it was not okay to go there and watch that residents were actually making the trenches to the road so the water wouldn't pool around the foundations. And that's what was happening. So I don't understand why that happens. I understand why it's happening. I mean, it is definitely retaliation, but it's totally unacceptable. So I'd like to follow up on that also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Healy.
So thank you. I don't have any liaison reports, but one positive impact of the recent storm is that the water supply pool in Lake Sonoma is now at 103% of capacity.
Good. And still early in the season.
Very.
Okay, Council Member Now.
Thank you. At our last Parks and Recs meeting, we were introduced to a group of young people. Thank you, AmeriCorps, for being here, because I was going to talk about you, and it saves me some trouble. They also worked on Luma Ice, building the foundation around our ice rink. So I'm really excited, and thank you, because Adobe is not easy. Looking forward to at least 3 events in 2025. The Parks staff has decided, besides Arbor Day, they're going to have Adopt a Park in 2025, and the more information to come. Letters to Santa is back. Letters can be written by local children. It can be dropped off at City Hall and the Community Center. The City of Petaluma staff writes responses to the sendees, but hurry, the deadline is soon. And Luma Ice has a website. It's lumaice.org. And the Parks and Recs department has a lot of fun things planned, so check the website. It'll be running December 13th through January 11th. So I don't know if AmeriCorps youths are going to be down here in Petaluma to enjoy it, but I hope you do. And New Year's Eve is going to have a disco. And so it should make some great memories and traditions in Petaluma. And I really want to thank our Petaluma Parks and Rec staff for working so hard on it. Also, our park staff is working hard on the Light Up a Light The tree had to have new lights strung this year, and staff has been working really hard in making that Walnut Park tree, and I went by tonight. It's looking great. And Light Up a Life is Friday, December 6th at 6 p.m. at Walnut Park. And it will be a spectacular night, remembering those we have lost and benefiting the hospice of Petaluma. But a big thank you to our park staff. Downtown Petaluma was humming with activities last week and for the rest of December. Tomorrow is the holiday gift fair at the Hotel Petaluma from 3 to 7. And the benefit of this fair goes to our Petaluma Firefighters Foundation. The tickets are free, but the donations go to our Firefighters Foundation. And for the Small Business Saturday, the downtown merchants were giving out downtown Petaluma holiday bingo cards to children. This belongs to my grandkids. And then the adults got this passport for shop, play, and save. And it has numerous discounts to our local merchants. And the contest, you can win up to $150 for a Petaluma shopping spree. And another benefit that's happening in Petaluma to benefit our SAFE team is a pop-up artesia market at Deviled Eggery on Bodega Avenue. And you might have heard those sirens. Those are the Santa Parade. Today's day one. I saw them setting up in front of the D Street Firehouse on my way over. So that's the sound you hear. On Wednesday, they'll be in my District 3 in my neighborhood. I'm very excited, and we've got the wagons all set to be out there greeting the firefighters who do this every year and visit 3 different neighborhoods in the month of December. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Postacate.
Thank you, sir. I had several meetings last week. We had a meeting of the Transit Advisory Committee, which had a presentation on a program called the Mascots Program, which stands for Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service, where they're trying to get together and talk about how they can, if you will, get the different transit providers in Marin and Sonoma counties and down into San Francisco working together on stuff. And they found, they just completed basically the existing conditions report. And the 2 main issues, which they'll now start to discuss how to help, are overlapping services. In one case, I won't give the details, but in one case, for example, there are 3 providers running a service between the same 2 cities. And they're not full, and so there's room for some savings there. Second issue is the local connections between SMART and the other places in that town or area that folks want to go. So you should be hearing more about that soon. LumaGo continues to increase its ridership. That's good as well. We also had a Sonoma County Homeless Coalition Board. We'll be having an election next week to elect 4 new board members, turnover here at this time of year, same as on the city council. And finally, we had a public safety advisory committee meeting where we talked about how to better engage the community and what's happening there. I guess I'd also say I took part in the turkey trot, or maybe turkey walk, for the first time this year. So I had that experience added that to my repertoire as well. And of course, I can't stop without saying that we still have to work harder on a ceasefire in the Middle East. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What I did the last couple of weeks is one of the things is go to Marin Health, which is the grand opening over in the Safeway Shopping Center. Rather than a gas station, we now have a full walk-in clinic run by Marin Health, and they have lots of doctors and nurses there. Large facility, will provide lots of service to our community. A second opening was the Anchor Health opening, which is a new privately held hospice service. So they cover the entire region, and this is their home office will be here in Petaluma, serving the entire North Bay area. I found out that Petaluma Wetlands Alliance, the bird researchers there, actually found 83 species of birds, just as a note, of what a fabulous place we have down here on our river, with that many species found within 3 hours by a group of folks. Just to repeat, the Deviled Eggery, that's going to be over there on the Bodega Bay, is going to have a fundraiser for the SAFE team, just as a repeat of that. And then coming up, there's 2 bike rides. I'll be joining in on Friday at 5. We start at the Walnut Park. That's a monthly bike ride. And then there's also going to be a lighted parade this year on December 20th, starting at the Petaluma Community Center and going all around the east side of town. Very family friendly. And there's even some decorations going on that can be done during the day. You get some free help if you want to decorate your bike yourself and come join us. One of the events that I was following this last few weeks was the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. And it's a conference of the parties of the UN. And this focus, of course, was on climate change actions from around the world. And unfortunately, there wasn't enough action, but a lot of talk and a lot of promises. We'll see where the money goes, but a lot of money is going to move from the richer nations to the poorer nations to cover their costs for what they're going to be facing here in the climate situation that they're going to be in. But there is a couple of good things. They did call that for an Earth Day to become international, and that it should be focused on climate action. So maybe we can help out with that Earth Day here. Also, even the Chinese provinces are working together now on working on a variety of solutions just there in China. So that's how far-reaching this is. And there's been a strong request for multi-level cooperation of the nations, regions, and local cities. And one of the summaries from this is that cities all over the world have joined us, and we're part of a larger group of cities all around the world doing climate actions with deadlines by 2030 or 2035 or 2040 for all the climate actions to become carbon neutral. So this is a worldwide event that we are hopefully part of the lead on. And again, just thank you for the AmeriCorps for all the plantings you do. Please plant as many trees as possible. Otherwise, I'll be out there finishing the job. So I want you to finish first. But thank you for all that you do. And and if you're interested in climate change, and there's some new information and new Bill Gates has a What's Next on Netflix. There's 4 episodes, one of which is climate change, and he's offering us all sorts of possibilities, pouring lots of money into investments into trying to draw down carbon from the atmosphere. So that's another big benefit that's going on that he's contributing, as well as he's talked to over 100 billionaires to donate half their money to the rest of the world that needs everything. So that's pretty phenomenal when I found out about that. Okay, so that's my topic today. So I will pass it on to our Assistant City Manager, Brian Cochran, for an update on the city.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council and community. Just one thing, and thank you, Councilmember Now, for mentioning the various parks happenings in our city and in our Parks Department. I just wanted to underscore the Daily Acts project at La Tercera, the Habitat Bioswale project happening this Saturday at 10 a.m. with Daily Acts, and wanted to emphasize the volunteer component of that. So if folks are interested, please go to dailyacts.org and click on events, and you can sign up to volunteer for that project. Should be exciting, and beautiful new habitat there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent calendar. So is there any items that need to be pulled directly, individually off the consent calendar? Thank you. We'll take a moment if folks need to go ahead and head out. Okay, so let's continue with the consent calendar. Is there any questions about the consent calendar? Looks like none, in which case I'll entertain a motion.
Well, public comment.
Public comment. Oh, yes. Is there any public comment on the public is invited to make comments on items listed on the consent calendar. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone out there wish to speak on any of the consent calendar items?
We did not receive any comments ahead of time, but members of the public attending in person should bring their speaker cards to the clerk's desk if they have not already done so. Speakers are reminded to be respectful in their comments and that this meeting is being translated. Please pause between sentences for translation. Looks like we have none on the consent calendar. Looks like maybe we have one on the consent calendar. No.
Don, I'll make the motion.
That's number 8.
If you'd like to fill out a card for now and speak first, you can do that, unless there's for another topic tonight.
This comment is for a later agenda item.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on with the consent calendar. Is there any motions?
Yeah, I'd be happy to move the consent calendar agenda items 1 through 6.
I'll second that.
Any second?
Yes,
James
second.
Thompson with the second. Okay, shall we have a roll call?
Yes. Barnacle?
Aye.
Peter Thompson?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Posake?
Yes.
Shribs?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to item number 7 with public hearings and matters for consideration. So item number 7 is the introduction to first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Petaluma, amending the Petaluma Municipal Code to add Chapter 4.50 entitled Exhaustion of Administrative Remedies for Challenges to Fees, Charges, and Assessments on Real Property pursuant to Government Code Sections 53759.1 and 53759.2. So, and this is going to be led by the staff of Jesse Gooch, our finance director, and Assistant City Attorney Dylan Brady. So if you're ready.
Yep. Thank you, City Council. Dylan Brady, Assistant City Attorney. And this is an ordinance that I know Jesse Gooch, our finance director, would really appreciate, and our finance staff. Caitlin's going to be helping me steer the PowerPoint because I don't trust myself to do it. But this is an ordinance that we hope we never have to use, but we'll be glad in 30 years when all of us are gone and new staff that do not know how to properly comply with Prop 218, the notice requirements, that it's in place. So next slide, please, Caitlin. So AB 2257, it's a new state law that was enacted in September 25, 2024. But to get the benefits of this new state law, you need to, the City Council needs to adopt an ordinance, and this is the proposed ordinance in front of you tonight. AB 2257, it adds those 2 government code sections, but really what the legislature in enacting AB 2257 was trying to solve the problem where in property-related fees, and on the next slide, not now, Caitlin, but we'll go into what the scope of the ordinance is. It's only for property-related assessment and property-related fees. For those fees to be enacted, first, City Council needs to preliminary approve a engineer's report or what those fees are. Then it goes to those properties, a ballot that the city sends to all those properties that will be assessed. But for whatever reason, and then there's the public hearing at least 45 days later, where the property owners that were being assessed, they objected to it, but they didn't inform the city what their objection were or their grounds for doing it. And then they would sue the city to try to invalidate those new fees. So for instance, the legislature, they tried to solve a problem where a city only provided 40 days notice instead of the 45 days notice. And rather than the property owner informing the city, and where the city could have said, okay, property owner, you're correct, we're going to take it off calendar, we're going to renotice and do the 45 days correctly, they went ahead and just sued the city. So it was costly, unnecessary legislation, where if they would have just provided the city the information, the city would have renoticed. So next slide, please, Caitlin. So really, this is the only scope of what the ordinance is. It is only Article 13D, property assessments and property-related fees. Though recent examples of that is last year when the city amended its water, increased its water sewer fees. Another recent example is 5 years ago with the River Park Community Facilities District. That was a property assessment. Another one about 3 years ago was the Landscape Assessment District formation for Sunny Slope, that subdivision. And that's the process where you'll remember we get the box with all the ballots, and then the staff will read them. And if there's a majority protest, the new fee dies. But if there's not a majority protest in the ballot, then it goes to City Council for City Council to consider. They have the ability to either adopt the fees or to reduce those fees. So that is the process. What these fees are not, they aren't for the Article 13C taxes, and that's Article 13C under the California Constitution, I should say. There is an amendment. Eric and I looked and reviewed the AB 2257. And the ordinance does say right now in Chapter 4.5010 that it includes Article 13C. We would ask to amend that because we don't feel that Article 13C is covered within this legislation and would be protected under this ordinance if council does choose to introduce it tonight. So it's not the 13C taxes. It's also not cost recovery for when the city reviews permits or planning entitlements, encroachment permits, or to get a new zoning change, conditional use permit. Those are not covered under this ordinance and would not be protected. Fines, penalties for violations of the municipal code, they would not be protected under this ordinance. The fees for when it costs to rent a city facility, that's not covered under this ordinance. And then the last one are development fees. And I believe that's probably the universe of the fees. So again, it's only property assessments, property related fees like sewer, water, the assessment districts that are covered under this ordinance, cost recovery, planning entitlements, encroachment permits, where the payee gets the benefit. Those aren't covered under the ordinance. It's only when the property gets the benefit. So next slide, Caitlin. Okay. So under this requirement, and this is typical with like CEQA or planning laws, if anybody objects to the new fee, they are required within the 45 days of receiving the ballot of that hearing to provide written notice and state the grounds for their basis for objecting to those fees. And then staff, city council, they can review the grounds, see if they're meritorious. If they're meritorious, we'd likely take it off calendar or recommend that council continue the items for, past 45 days for the city to correct whatever that defect was. And again, that's pretty similar for like zoning and CEQA challenges. If you challenge a city planning decision, you need to provide the city the information beforehand so the city can review, determine if it's meritorious, rather than going directly to court and having an unnecessary lawsuit so the city could try to handle it administratively without getting a judge involved. So that is the objector's requirements. The city's requirements, though, they have more transparency and noticing requirements. They're at least 45 days ahead of that public hearing, required to provide the basis for, like the engineer's report, whatever the basis for those fees on its website. The ballots that get sent to all the properties that are assessed, they need to include some specific language that's included in the ordinance about how they need to submit written objections and what how to comply with the ordinance. So those are some additional transparency requirements that is required under the city's ordinance. And next slide, please, Caitlin. And again, to get the benefits of AB 2257, a city needs to adopt an ordinance. To get these benefits, there's really four that I see. It's more transparent process. I just talked about that it needs to be on the website. It needs to be mailed to any property owner ahead of time. The ballot needs to include some additional information. It saves the city, hopefully, time and money from having to defend unnecessary lawsuits that could have been handled administratively if the city would have known ahead of time what that defect was. More due process, I think, for the objectors because it goes to city council first before getting in front of a judge. And it better protects, again, I think, the property owners. When they get assessed a new property-related fee, they have the ability to object. If there's not a majority objection, then it goes to city council to approve. So theoretically, these are fees that those assessed property owners want to have and pay for, like their sewer costs. And this better protects their and city council's desires to have those new fees. So those are the benefits, and really that's my presentation. Happy to answer any feedback or questions. Besides the amendment to get rid of the Article 13D or C language in Section 4.50010A, we'd also recommend that the City Council remove the word city from the enabling legislation on page 2. So currently it says now, therefore, be it ordained by the City Council, to just say now, therefore, be it ordained by council. So thank you.
And Council, if I could add a few additional remarks. Thank you for the presentation, Dylan, and then we'll be happy to take council and public questions. Thanks, Dylan, for the work on that. As I think you can tell, what this would enact if the council chooses to introduce and adopt it would be exhaustion requirements, which is an administrative objection process that people would need to satisfy before filing a lawsuit regarding the covered fees. And as Dylan has emphasized a few times, those are only the assessments and property-related fees that are subject to Proposition 218 and are under Section 13D of the California Constitution. It does not apply to the host of other fees that Dylan mentioned. So these are the fees, the best examples are the water and sewer service fees that we're used to providing the Prop 13 noticing and balloting process with which the council is familiar. The legislature's motivation for this new enactment is to overturn two recent California Supreme Court cases, Hill RHF Housing Partner and Planeter versus Ramona Municipal Water District. Both concluded that there is no administrative exhaustion process that applies to lawsuits under Article 13D of the Constitution, and this would create that, but only, as Dylan noted, if the council implements it. So it's not self-implementing state law. Local agencies have to adopt it to take advantage of it. And as you could hear, if you reflect on the Proposition 218, noticing that you're used to, it would essentially require objectors to submit the basis for their objections, procedural or substantive, concerning proposed new or extended or increased fees, but would also give them much earlier notice of the substance, published notice on our website of the substance and the basis for the fee enactments. So that's part of the additional transparency that would result. The correction that Dylan mentioned, where the ordinance says now therefore be it ordained after the recitals, that's called our ordainment clause, and ours is prescribed by charter, and it's actually really important that we do that right, because if we don't, it's a potential validity problem for the enactment. So we need to fix it here, and we've also already fixed it in our template in our new software so that we don't have to revisit that or be watching for that. And as Dylan noted, that it's quite clear in the state law that the exclusive focus and application of this exhaustion requirement is Article 13D, property-related fees and property assessments. So that's really what I wanted to add, and thank you very much, and we'll be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. I'll leave it to the council now to ask questions. Okay, the one question I would have for this is, you mentioned the word ballot would be sent out, and then and also LADs besides water and sewer late. So can you just explain in simple terms the actual process now that we're going to go through to send out ballots to change the fees on LADs? How would that work?
So it wouldn't be to change the existing fees, but for new fees, for like new assessment districts, or to increase whatever the existing LADs are, that would be implemented in this ordinance. But those existing ordinance, those are already in place. Nobody can challenge them right now. But the current process under this ordinance, and even without this ordinance, to either get a new assessment district is first it goes to City Council. City Council reviews the engineer's report. The engineer's report states what the scope of the assessments will be, the improvements are, and how much each property in that assessment district will pay. So that's the proportion. So City Council will review the engineer's report. They'll preliminary approve it or make any recommendations. They will then set a hearing for at least 45 days in the future. Staff will then send ballots, and under this new ordinance, there will be additional information on what those ballots need to have. What the ballots do have, that's under Prop 218, Article 13D, the Constitution. But essentially, what the engineer's report's saying, the ballot process to object, how much they have to pay, when that hearing date is, so information that a property owner would need to know for that hearing. Then it comes to staff. They get the ballots. We have a box outside that we put up, or you can mail it directly to Caitlin. Then during the hearing, right after the presentation and council comments, we would open all those ballots. If there is a majority of the ballots that say, no, we don't want this new fee or assessment, the vote dies right there. If there is not a majority protest, it then goes to City Council. City Council has the ability to say, yes, we want to adopt the new fee or reduce the size of the fee. So that's the process.
Okay, thank you. So I said water and sewer rates. This is only for increases or decreases, changes in the sewer rates. This would also happen?
So not decreases, but new fees or increases of the water rates.
Right. Okay, so new increases or new fees, new increases of water, sewer, and LADs. Those are the big three that we're talking about.
Right, and the balloting is not new. That's already a requirement under Proposition 218. What this ordinance would require to implement it, if the council adopt it, is additional information in the balloting concerning how it is that ratepayers would need to object to exhaust their requirements and be able to put the city on notice about concerns they have so that we can address it, and if we don't, to be able to sue us. I guess what I should also note is this is very much the logic for this kind of a process and exhaustion requirement is like what we have under the government code. For claims for money damages, they need to be brought in accordance with the statutory requirements before people can sue the city for money damages. And the reason for that is to avoid wasting public funds on litigation, where we could determine whether there's merit to the claim or not. And if there is merit, we can settle it instead of wasting funds on litigation. Or if there's not merit, we can let the person know there's not merit to this, and we plan to defend it vigorously. So it conserves public resources, and it's a way for holding public agencies accountable because, you know, the onus is on us to make a careful determination as to whether we might be subject to liability in the form of damages, as well as attorney's fees on top, which obviously we don't want to waste the public's funds on unnecessary litigation costs. So.
Good, thank you. So I was just saying there's a process that can be involved in here, and it's pretty limited to what we're going to be dealing with.
Right, and it's not much of a change from what we're used to. It's additional information on how ratepayers can object.
Good, thank you. Okay, we're going to move to public. Any questions?
Yeah, so now I'm totally confused. Are water and sewer rates covered by this? Because I don't see those. Are those considered property-related fees?
Yes, and the reason, Councilmember Healy, is one of the tests that is used to determine whether fees is subject to Article 13D, Prop 218, is whether the property owner can avoid the fee by other than selling their property. And the thought is, once property is developed, it's not like you can choose to no longer have water or sewer service. And in fact, our Muni Code for developed property requires connecting to the city system and utilizing the city system. So that's a very good example of property related fees subject to Prop 218, and that's why we're used to doing that kind of noticing when we update those water and sewage usage fees.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, because we'll move to the public comment. So anybody has a speaker card they would like to bring up and on this topic, do so now.
We did receive one public comment on item number 7 ahead of time, which is posted to the website. And I have one card and I think one pending. But anyone else should bring their speaker card to the clerk's desk if they have not already done so. Speakers are reminded to be respectful in their comments and that this meeting is being translated. Please pause between sentences for translation.
Okay, we have 3 speakers, 3 minutes each, and they'll be in order of Darren Rakusin, Maureen Gottschall, and then Nicholas Harris.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Shribs. Thank you, Caitlin. So on this item, a couple of pieces of information when I was reading this. I'm wondering what the city's current litigation burden is without this in place, how many of these lawsuits get brought without this protection. Also, if there's any feedback from other municipalities that have implemented or opted into 2257, what the feedback has been, especially from citizens. You know, in first reading this, I was really worried it would be too onerous for people to engage in the process. And I think, you know, part of what I'm hearing assuages that concern. I still have a little concern about a written objection that needs to meet certain criteria or thresholds to be deemed valid or exhaust their administrative process. So I just worry we might miss some valid criticism or objection for people not being able to meet that threshold. And I wonder if there's something to address equity and inclusion, a provision for waiving certain requirements or changing requirements based on, you know, I say vulnerable populations in my notes, but people who for whatever reason can't engage in the current formal process, or if there is someone who for whatever reason is not able to make that 45 days, or I don't know what that would look like, but some door to allow for an extension like we see sometimes with other administrative review processes, to develop something like that so there is a little bit of an out if people are unable to generate the kind of material we need to engage in this, or for whatever reason they can't list their objection in the 45-day period. But thank you for the questions and details. Thanks.
Thank you. Maureen's next.
My concern was on the 45 days. I felt that it was limited. If you're posting something on like November 15th and you have 45 days through the end of the year, that's a time frame that's going to be challenging. And I wanted to know, when I looked at it online, I didn't see that 45 days was a requirement. And I would like to ask the city if you could possibly extend that to 90 days or to a timeline that feels a little more, gives the public more time to gather what their thoughts are on and do their research. They work and, you know, they have day-to-day lives. So I'd like to see that timeline extended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Nicholas.
Good evening, Council. A couple concerns. One is actually about the public notice of this agenda item. I saw it on the preliminary agenda last Friday, so that gives us, it was about a week. So the public, or at least from my perspective, what my experience is, we're getting about a week notice on a due process issue for issues that are important and substantial enough to require a 45-day public process. I feel like the public should have at least the same amount of notice of a change to their due process rights. The other, from my understanding, my interpretation of what this does, is that it's transferring the onus of the city's compliance with the Constitution of the state of California from the city onto a engaged and observant public. If there, and I would love some comment on this. My understanding, it sounds like if there is something put forward and the city does not comply with all constitutional requirements, if a member of the public does not object to that, they cannot challenge what's going on in a court of law. It's very alarming if that is in fact the case. Lastly, this is really thinking of you all and the time you spend here. From the staff report, it says that there'd be increase in hearings. Just don't know if we want to keep adding public hearings to the calendar, staying late at night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so it's back to council for any more questions and discussion. Councilman Healy.
Thank you. So just a little bit deeper dive on the public notice issue. Does that mean it would be, there'd be a legal notice published in the local newspaper?
So I can handle, and that the 45 days, it's at least 45 days. City council can set the hearing as far back as they want or up in the future. Prop 218 does not for at least the assessment districts, and I don't believe for the water, but maybe the water. So at least for the assessment districts, it does not.
The question is, what form does the public notice take?
Right. It's ballots mailed directly to the property owners that are assessed.
Do we do that with water and sewer rate increases?
Correct.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
So everyone's going to get something in their mailbox?
Yep. Correct. For, well, not everyone. It's only the properties that will be assessed. So.
Okay, so they're put on notice, and this process will be laid out in that notice that they receive.
Correct, exactly. There's some language explicitly in the ordinance that requires it. And just for the properties that are assessed, like Sunny Slope, I think there was 18 properties that were in that assessment district. Those are the only 18 that received the ballot.
And is the 45-day figure something that's specified by the new state statute, or can we put a different number in?
That's Prop 218 in the California Constitution.
Is that a minimum or a maximum?
It's a minimum.
So if we wanted to put in a higher number, we could?
Well, we could, definitely. But I think you could address that by just saying, when you receive that preliminary engineer's report, and this is, again, City Council's discretion, say this hearing will take place in 90 days, 100 days in the future.
Okay, and then the objection has to be submitted before the hearing?
Well, not just at the close of the hearing.
Close it, okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other councilmen now?
I was just wondering, Dylan, one of our public comments was on other municipalities that are also doing this. Do we know how theirs are going?
So this state statute that allowed this ordinance was just enacted in September 25th.
Right. So we don't have anything?
We don't, but those ones that face a lawsuit, I bet they would be glad that they had this and had the notice ahead of time so they could have cured any defects.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. That's all I have.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, did you have? A couple quick comments in response to some of the other questions we heard in case they're helpful. One thing I wanted to note is Petaluma's practice of publishing our draft agendas is actually additional public notice that we're not required to do under the Brown Act. Also, remember, this would have to be enacted by an ordinance. If the council is to enact it, that means first reading tonight, a second reading subsequently, and then a 30-day referendum period running before it can take effect. So there's another full bite at the apple for members of the public that want to come and raise concerns to the council if they wish, or submit written comments before it comes back for a second reading. And I just, as Dylan noted, the 45 days is a minimum, and it tracks to the 45-day minimum noticing in Proposition 218. So the council, we can give more notice. I mean, the real big process that we do regarding this is the water and sewer rates, and that involves millions and millions of dollars that can be time sensitive in terms of keeping the rate, the sewer and water enterprises whole to reflect whatever the studies show is needed in terms of operations and maintenance and capital costs. So the timing can be important from a fiscal standpoint, but we have to do at least the 45 days mailed notice to each affected ratepayer, whether it's an assessment, an LAD, or water and sewer rate increases or new rates.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussions, council? The two that I had was on how the noticing was being done, who it was done to, which got answered, and also there is a second reading, and even a little bit of time after that, there may be a third, a chance for the public to speak up on this issue. So those are opportunities for folks to, this is just a start of this. The final decision is not tonight. We're just going to continue on. So with that, my questions were answered. Any other?
You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm just going to ask another question. I'm not quite clear. Can we change the minimum from 45 days to 90, or can we not do that based on the state?
I would advise against it because the 45 days is already in Prop 218.
Okay.
And that would, tie, when we, for example, when we did the last water and sewer rate updates, the timing was important. Our finance, I don't think our folks are here tonight, but the finance folks, and Gina would say probably too, it was important in terms of the fiscal health.
That
of the
helps. I
enterprise.
just want a little more clarification.
Yep. But that's certainly something the council can direct. And in a perfect world, we can give more timing, more time. Somebody also, one of the members of the public talked about vulnerable. That was Commissioner Rakusin talked about vulnerable populations. Having an exception to an exhaustion requirement defeats its purpose. But we do have programs that we're still developing. We do a lot more translating than we used to, and we're still looking at our language practices in terms of agendas and other public notice we give. So those are other ways we can look at that. It's pretty formulaic, as you can tell from Dylan's description. What is the information we have to give to make sure people can make informed choices before they object to rates or accept them? So it's a little constrained in terms of that, but we're always looking at ways to provide for easier and more effective participation by our community members in our government. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments from council? Okay, let's go. Is there a motion?
So I'll move introduction to the first reading of the ordinance with the language changes suggested by Mr. Brady. And do you want to repeat what those were?
Absolutely. So on page 2 of the ordinance, where it says, and this is in the enabling, now therefore be it ordained by City Council of the City of Petaluma as follows, to have it get rid of the first city to say now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Petaluma as follows. And then in section 4.5010A to get rid of the words 13C. So it'll say article and or. So currently it says articles 13C or 13D. It will just say article 13D. Thanks.
Thank you. That's my motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay. Janice Cater Thompson has seconded. Okay. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Barnacle?
Aye.
Cater Thompson?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Posake?
Yes.
Shribs?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We then now move on to item number 8, adoption of ordinance number 2897 NCS to amend the zoning map of the implementing zoning ordinance to pre-zone a 12.9 acre site located at 5400 Old Redwood Highway to the Business Park BP and Open Space Park OSP, zoning districts and floodplain combining district FPC. Prior to annexation, proceedings to be conducted by the Sonoma Local Area Formation Commission. That's the Sonoma LAFCO. And it's under APN 0472130017 and 137011048. City record number PLZA 2020-0001 and PLAN 2024-0001. Okay, and it's going to be introduced here and presented by Andrew Triple, our planning manager, and Mike Janicek, our senior planner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shribs. My name is Mike Janicek, and I'm Senior Planner Consulting with M Group. I'm here to present the staff report for 5400 Old Redwood Highway pre-zone. This is a second reading for adoption of an ordinance for a zoning map amendment. An overview of my presentation this evening, I'll provide a recap on the applicant's request. I'll summarize the previous hearing, which was the first reading on October 21st, 2024. I'll summarize public comment and review the request against the standards of review, as well as provide staff's recommendation. If you recall, the project site is located on Old Redwood Highway near the northern city limit. The nearest cross street is Redwood Way. The eastern site boundary is Caltrans Railroad right-of-way, and the western site boundary is Willowbrook Creek. The site consists of two parcels. The primary parcel, as shown, is more rectangular in shape. That is 12.2 acres, whereas the triangular piece to the far right is 0.7 acres. The site is located within the urban growth boundary in the adopted general plan, and as such it has general plan land use designation. It's designated as business park. There's also open space designation adjacent to Willowbrook Creek, as well as along the northern boundary of the site. And adjacent city land use designations include similar like designations, the open space along the creek, and then as business park as well, with Redwood Business Park to the west and south. I should also mention on the previous slide, because it's within the UGB and because it has a general plan land use designation, it's fully anticipated that the site would be subject to a future annexation. As for the zoning, there's no city zoning. It's currently within Sonoma County jurisdiction, and it's zoned limited commercial. Adjacent, there's the aforementioned Redwood Business Park, which is implemented through a PCD district, and there's also open space and park district that implements the open space Creekside adjacent. And so before you this evening is the second reading for a zoning map amendment, which is exercised through a city council ordinance. And that also has Exhibit A, which has the actual map amendment. And City Council has the authority to amend the implementing zoning ordinance upon recommendation of the Planning Commission. That's found in IZO section 25010. Furthermore, this is a requirement of the annexation process, and annexation proponents must gain a pre-zoning from the accepting jurisdiction for the unincorporated territory. Here's the exhibit that shows the zone change. And so the majority of this site would be zoned business park. The perimeter to the west and north would be zoned open space parks. And then there's an overlay for the floodplain combining district that corresponds to portions of the site that are within the FEMA 100-year floodplain. A recap of the first reading, which took place on October 21st, 2024. This was a continuation of the hearing on June 17th, 2024. The applicant prepared a presentation on the intended future uses of the site, following council's direction. They also prepared a revised fill evaluation memo dated August 30th by West Consultants that reaffirmed the recommendation not to remove the fill placed on the site. There's also incorporated by reference of Section 4 within the ordinance. There's a pre-annexation agreement which ensures the city's zero net fill policy will apply to the site. That's in your packet this evening through reference in the ordinance, Section 4. And lastly, at the first reading, City Council voted 5-2 in favor of introducing the ordinance found in Attachment 1 for the zone change. And Council also adopted a resolution of application for annexation proceedings with Sonoma-LAFCO. A summary of public comment to date. This item was noticed on November 22nd, and no public comments have been received. And staff is able to make the necessary findings. In summary, the business park and open space zones implement the business park and open space general plan land use designations and are therefore consistent with the general plan. The project site is located within the UGB, and the zone change would not change the development potential of the site. Future development would be subject to compliance with the IZO, the River Access and Enhancement Plan, and is conditioned to comply with the city's zero net fill policy. The amendment and connection to municipal services will allow the property owners to lease additional space within the existing commercial building, which would support the convenience and general welfare of the property owner and City of Petaluma merchants. Further, would expand the city's tax base and would allow the city to apply its floodplain development policies and regulations which are intended to protect the city's health and safety. A Class 19 CEQA categorical exemption is also applicable for the project. No exceptions to the exemption apply. This categorical exemption is for annexations of existing facilities and lots for exempt facilities. And furthermore, the site has been analyzed previously in the general plan EIR. And with that, staff recommends council adopt an ordinance to approve the zoning map amendment for the property at 5400 Old Redwood Highway. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So up to the council, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a public comment. The public is invited to make comments on this item. If you can fill out a card. Have we received any comments earlier?
We did not receive any comments ahead of time, although we do have one card, and I'll give folks a minute if they want to come up. Members of the public attending in person should bring their speaker cards to the clerk's desk if they have not already done so. Speakers are reminded to be respectful in their comments and that this meeting is being translated. Please pause between sentences for translation.
Okay, if Alex DeCarli could come on up. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to urge you not to adopt Resolution 2897 at 5400 Old Redwood. Back at the beginning of summer, during the first reading, Council was notified by several floodwater experts that there was insufficient analysis of the excess fill on site that violates Petaluma's no-net fill policy. These valid concerns were never fully addressed. Just 2 weeks ago, we had massive flooding in town. I went down and looked at 5400 Old Redwood, and the property had been underwater at the height of that flood, including the east side of the railroad tracks across from that area with the illegal fill. One of the few places that didn't go underwater was the area in question. Areas like this provide relief to homes, mobile home communities, businesses, heavily trafficked roads, and the whole rest of the town downstream. Petaluma needs to take flooding seriously, especially when experts from Marin and Sonoma-LAFCO and other agencies tell you how serious it is based on their decades of experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to council for any discussion. Any comments? Council member now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I did vote against this the last time because I was concerned about flooding. After my vote, the property owners of Barn 5400 reached out to me, and they know the city's policies, and going forward, they know the concerns of our community, but I feel like they're going to address the flooding and the conditions of their property and how to improve it so that we can eliminate future flooding. So I will be approving this tonight only because I believe in these property owners and want to see these businesses succeed. So I will be approving this tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move approval.
Okay, that's a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
And a second by Janice Gator Thompson. Okay, go ahead, please take roll call.
Barnacle,
Aye.
Gator Thompson,
Yes.
Healy,
No.
Now,
Yes.
Posake,
Yes.
Shribs,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. With that, that's the end, and we now to an adjournment. And with that, we are adjourned at 7:56 p.m.
I think that's a record.
Did I win?
That was good. That was good.